Good morning. It is currently starting this reading, and I just looked. It's 11:11. How cool is that? Alright, so that's not what I actually wanted to start off with, but since it was, I wanted to. Also, we're going to start just doing a few of the cards from Spirit out of the Brian Frobe Fairies Oracles. I did these in a reading, and I think I'm going to try and do a certain folder just with these, because there's several cards, obviously. Okay. And playing on the phone right now is I Choose You with Ryan Darling. Alright, it's not in my playlist, so I'm not even sure why it comes on, but look it up. Ryan Darling, I Choose You lyrics. Anyone knows, I usually, if there's music in the background, it's usually native spiritual. Alright, so these are the fairy decks, right? Pictures on them are awesome, just beautiful. And I've had these for a long time, but they're quite in depth for getting the messages across. And then when you read what's in the book, is even gives different than what you usually channel. So I thought I would just read the descriptions, because when I channel messages from Spirit regarding the card, it might not be the same as what's meant by the writer or the creator. So similar messages, just that come across differently, of course. So Spirit, I'm asking, give us the cards that you would like for the collective that are watching the video, need to hear. What messages do they need to hear from these when we read the actual meaning out of the book? Thank you. Alright. 4 cards, 4 or 5 cards. Goodness. What messages would you like them to have? As I read the meanings out of them, I leave those other cards out. Alright, so there's like 3 or 5, I think, cards that I set aside because I did them yesterday. So you have to look at yesterday's collective read. I think I posted it last night. And there's like 5 cards that we read the meaning for on those. Any other ones? Spirit. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So first up is She of the Creweth. Okay. And a collective of pixies. They look like spirits. Oh, a new beginning. And an uprising. This is my like Phoenix Rising or Ascension card. Someone's ascending. The fairy godmother. How beautiful. So you get one blank card in the book, and if you get this book and you read it, there's when you get the blank paper, you're supposed to draw an image of what you want this card to be, representing new beginning. And the first thing that came to mind was the swirl, meaning the uprising or ascension. So this is my Ascension card, or new beginnings. Okay. So this is a number 5 card, and right off the bat you can also see that there are also 5, like you have this, the wing here, here, and one up the middle, so there's like 5 wings. Also kind of looks like a beam of light coming straight up, and like the flames coming off of it could represent 2 flames. Alright, so let's see what the book's description, again it's number 5, okay? There's that. Now here's the ones I set aside. Yesterday's it was a really good selection of them that Spirit gave us yesterday, so I really encourage you to look at the video from last Knight. Alright, so she of the crotch. Just show you, it's a lot, I know. There's a lot of writing. I don't know if you can read that. Anyway, okay, so the receptive principle, nurturing fertility, okay? This is the great goddess, the many-named mother of all, and all goddesses are attributes or aspects of her. Her cup, the crotch, overflows with bounty for all. She is the yin energy of the universe, nurturing, compassionate, and wise. She gives form and brings into manifestation the will and the life force of the he of the fairy sword. His is the intention, the action, and hers is the manifestation of reality. In a sense, she is the crotch holding all the world within her being. One oracle group member saw this as a great bowl, like a scrying tool for seeing past, present, and future potential, but filled with energy instead of water. Within it, he saw a tower with a moon above it, a farmhouse, and many other bits and pieces of our world. He felt that if you dropped something in the water, these things would scatter out to become reality. The archetype manifestation everywhere, he said. She is the woman who dreams it, and her dreams are the world and all that are in it to them. Looking at this card, another oracle group member notes, what I see here is the energy of being held lovingly in the palm of the hand of the great goddess, followed by the relaxed sigh and release. She's the crotch, is the holder of all of our sorrows, all of our joys. She, the miraculous chalice, is the womb of birth and the cauldron of rebirth, the chalice of healing and the container holding the germinated seeds. She is the body, the soul, the shrine that holds the spirit, keeps it from being lost or dissipate in a formless fog. She is patterns and forms in abstracts and is in the specific. Within her we take form, grow, achieve fulfillment, and let go of that form to move on to the next phase of our being. All of the universe, each individual particle, every being is cherished by her. The presence of this card in a reading radiates comfort and nurturing to the cards all around it. She's the crotch may indicate a form of pregnancy, a necessary time of nurturing and developing. We need to be open to her overflowing grace and beauty. She may also indicate a need to allow her nurturing grace to flow through us to others in the form of unconditional love and giving and spiritual healing. She tells us of the need of unconditional receiving, of making the best of what we are offered. She also reminds us that unbounded love and grace is ours, just awaiting to be accepted. And without unconditional love to give, we cannot receive. I can see the palm of the hand one, the bowl, the chalice. Almost looks like a world within a world being lit up. It's very cool. So let's see what 48. Look at the card and then see what you think it reminds you of before we read. The collective of Pixies. Okay, a collective of Pixies. Duty, willingness, joyful participation, virtue. A Pixie's got to do what a Pixie's got to do. So they're the little spirits that help us work, evidently. One of those things a pixie has to do is to dance. It has to be done so that the flowers will grow, the fruit will, the grass will do its photosynthesis thing, the trees will put down their roots properly, and other processes will proceed in the proper time, at their proper pace. The presence of the pixies' energetic little etheric feet may even be what helps to keep the world turning at the right speed. At least they claim it does. I know that physicists claim differently, but who would you rather believe? Besides, physicists keep changing their minds about things, and pixies have done this dance forever, and the world has kept on turning, hasn't it? All the physicists do, anyways, is to explain how the pixies' dance works, not who does it. Approaching these tasks with lightheartedness is, they say, essential. It lends virtue and the sense of potency in their actions. Otherwise, their feet would come down too heavily and stunt the growth of the things instead of enhancing it. Or they might step too lightly and the things might grow the wrong way or sideways. It could make the world turn wrong. Okay. Pixies could treat their duty as something boring or oppressive, but they choose to take joy in what they do, and they do it well. Are you faced with duties, like the old saying goes, a merry heart makes light work? We have a choice about how we do anything. We can make a game of it, do it happily, or we can take an attitude that makes it demanding and oppressive. We can choose to regard it as boring and dull. When we choose the first attitude, the results have a different feeling, a different energy with the results of the other two attitudes. Anyone and everything that comes in contact with these results of that work feels the difference and its effects differently by whether they notice it or not. So here is another of those places where we can make the world a better or worse, and do the same to ourselves simultaneously. What is needed here is not only an awareness of duty, but a merry approach to that duty. This job has to be done, so it might as well be done with a happy heart and willingly. Perhaps, though, through this dance of maze, step by step, Lithy and Lighty take joy and pride in achievement. Approach the work with zest and zeal and zing, and perhaps even a little zaniness as well. Otherwise, you might as well not bother. Well, almost. There is something about the light-hearted approach to your daily duties that is important at this time in order to achieve the results you want. Additionally, consider the words collective and cooperative, as you make your plans. This situation may take more than one person, perhaps several, working together to achieve the desired results. Joining forces with others is appropriate at this time. Seek that cooperation of friends, family, co-workers, and fairies as appropriate. So, she's birthing the world. She's the goddess of all goddesses. And this tells us to dance and make happy work. Whistle while you work. And that the 7 dwarfs, they whistle while they work. And they had a lot of work to do. Alright, so this one is, I think it's the 0 card. Hang on. Because it's a new beginning, so it should be the 0 card. Yes, and your higher self. Ascension and your higher self. Okay, this card has been left a blank for you to draw your own fairy guide on it. Alright? Both this and the reverse reading are something you will need to work out with your fairy guide. Hang on. Each person's sojourn in fairy is highly individual and unique. Each traveler moves through a very different symbolic and emotional landscape. Thus, the meaning of a painting reveals itself only individually, changing from viewer to viewer. This is the card of Ascension. This is the card of Higher Self. It is the 0 card. So as you look at the card, you choose for yourself, the viewer, what this card means to you as your higher self ascends. Okay, so 25. Okay, the fairy godmother. You can look at the card and see what it means to you, how you would read the card. Alright, it's a 25, so it's a 7. Okay, so one morning recently I was having breakfast at the local cafe, and my favorite waitress, Peggy, stopped by my table and asked what I was working on. I showed her my scribbles and copy of the good fairies, bad fairies, and explained that I was choosing the cards for an oracle deck. Of course, the fairies were choosing them, but I didn't necessarily want to explain that to the whole cafe. Peggy had been having a bad morning. She had reached the stress point where she was dropping and spilling things, which only made matters worse. I encouraged her to pause a bit. Since the cafe wasn't really busy, and took a look at the fairy picture, she thought she couldn't. But I employed the paper's wiles of friendly card coaxing, and she took a little time out to look at the cards. When Peggy got to the page of the fairy godmother, she stopped and smiled. She said, "Oh yes," she said, "she must have the deck definitely, that she just must." The longer Peggy looked at her, the bigger her smile grew, and the more insistent she was that I include this in the deck. When she went back to work, I noticed that she had a little more smile on her face, and her whole energy had changed. Things were not jumping out of her hands any longer either. This is how this fairy godmother works. She gives us grace to help us along our way. It might be a little touch of fairy dust to lift a mood. It might be a conspicuous miracle. It might be anything in between. She protects us from the ill, the will, and the plain stupidity of others, from our own mistakes. She untangles the snarls in our psyche and bestows gifts upon us, whatever she feels that we need. Sometimes she gives us choices when we thought we had no choice. Grace is the good fortune we get from the universe when we don't deserve it. In fact, deserving or not deserving is not the issue. We are, and therefore we are loved. It's that simple. Fairy godmother is a giver of grace. She occasionally, quite often in fact, gives useful lessons as well. She tries not to interfere with our learning process, but she adds that little touch of fairy grace that helps us to learn a little bit faster. Sometimes, quite often, she acts in our lives through the hands and hearts of others. The fairy godmother is the only one to wear a crown of stars, flowers, branches, which says a lot about her. Luckily, each of us has a fairy godmother to provide that extra that our guardian angels are often too busy to think about. Fairy godmothers in general are well known for their love and love of parties. Don't forget to invite them to your festivities and special occasions. Fairy godmother glows through us as we perform loving and appropriate kindness for others and develop our capacity for unconditional love to all. So those are your cards for the day. Alright. You may or may not have, when you looked at the pictures, those might not have been the same descriptions of energy you read from it. But I highly encourage people getting the deck. It's beautiful. Alright, and then tomorrow we'll do more and we'll see what the Spirit brings out. I let Spirit choose which cards he wants us to read on which day, so that this is just kind of the energy for the day that Spirit wanted us to pass on. Alright, have a blessed day.